I just spun the mystery box over 1,000 times. And no, I'm not kidding. But what I found was totally worth it. Like, what's the best round to get legendary weapons or wonder weapons? What's the most common category of weapons? And what weapons are secretly not in the box at all? I have the answer to all of these questions and so much more. So let's get started. As always with these analytical videos, I put chapters in the video so you can skip to whatever section you're most interested in or to the end for the final results. Talking about my testing method, it was fairly simple. I loaded up in game and I spun the mystery box quite a bit. But if you don't know why this is a big deal, the mystery box is very special in Black Ops 6 and Cold War, because as you progress through the rounds, the rarity of the weapons gets better. So at the start of your match, you're going to get a lot of uncommon and rare weapons, and as you progress through the game, you're going to get more epic, legendary, and wonder weapons. And in order to figure out what rounds are most ideal for all of these rarities, I decided to spin the mystery box in groups of 10 rounds each. So because I wanted to spin it 1,000 times, that means I would do 166 spins from round 0 to 10, 11 through 20, 21 through 30, etc., all the way up to round 51 plus. And clearly, I can't spin the mystery box like over 100 times from round 0 to 10 in one singular game, so this took multiple games. Unfortunately, these weren't back-to-back games because I didn't think about that until like halfway through, so in case there was any sort of like specific pattern of all of these weapons, which there isn't, spoiler alert, but in case there was, I didn't account for that, but that's neither here nor there. But you might also think, Donuts, did you use any immolation liquidation gobblegums or respin cycles? So that way you can get more box spins, and I did not use any of those. The respin cycles, obviously I didn't use because that guarantees a rarity of the same or higher rarity, so that would skew my results. But I don't know exactly how immolation liquidation works, so I didn't want that to skew my results either. So I wanted to control all the variables that I could, so this is all just straight up 950 point box spins. But now let's get into the raw data. And I just want to scroll through here, and I want you to appreciate just how long this took me, because it took so long. You'll notice I marked down the rarity of the gun, the actual gun itself, and what category that gun was, and of course what round I was spinning the box in. And then I learned a lot about Google Sheets to make sure all of this information was automatically sorted as much as we could. And you'll notice that I did also spin the box well over 1,000 times. I finished up with 1,136 box spins. Now, unfortunately, I didn't take note of the map that I was spinning it on, which might not seem like a big deal, but it does affect the wonder weapon stats, but we'll get into that. Way back at the top here, we have all of the rarity of all of these different weapons. And if you take a look at the data, you can already see a pattern forming, but I warn you not to look at these exact numbers, because as you can see here, I did spin the box an uneven amount of times per all of these rounds. So these numbers are just straight up numbers. We're going to need to look at percentages. And don't you worry, we'll look at all of these stats and graphs later, but I want to save the rarity for later because there's more easy questions we can answer. First of all, let's talk about weapon category. Here we have all the different weapon categories: assault rifle, SMG, all the way through melees, wonder weapons, and even kill streaks, because you can get kill streaks through the box. And here you can see all the different rounds and all the different types of weapons that we got throughout the rounds and our total spins of that round. And in case you thought, hey, are like marksman rifles more common earlier in the game and less common late in the game, this chart says no, that's not true. Except for the wonder weapons, obviously. The wonder weapons will get more likely as the rounds go on, and sort of the kill streaks. I say sort of because there's not a lot of kill streaks, but a lot of the kill streaks are of higher rarity, so it depends on what you mean. But we will get to these things a little bit later. Here you can see the graph of everything, but I want to go over the plain weapon counts because this is really interesting. Super cool to see. We have all of these different weapons, all of the different weapons in the game. There are a total of 78 weapons. Actually, technically that's not true because we still don't have the pickaxe and the Olympia, so that number is a little off, but luckily we don't use that number. We use that number because that's how many items the mystery box is actually pulling from. Now, with that number, we can figure out that if the mystery box was purely random and it didn't matter at all what it was pulling out, every single item would have a 1.52% chance of being pulled. And with every single item that gets added to the mystery box, that one goes down, that percentage goes down. So if the mystery box is truly random, everything should be 1.5%, right? So if we scroll back up to our graph here, you'll notice that nope, not everything is 1.5, but some things are, like a bulk of the assault rifles are, SMGs, LMGs, even marksman rifles, a lot of things are purely random. But you'll notice some weapon categories or some categories are not purely random. Now, I think we all expect wonder weapons to not be random, even though the ray gun and the ray gun Mark II do seem to be pretty hovering around that 1.5. But again, we'll talk about it. We could see kill streaks and melee weapons especially very much seem like they have some sort of weighted modifier to show up far less in the mystery box than anything else. And I think that's fine. I don't think anybody wants melees to show up all the time because of just how many melees there are. And kill streaks might just be less likely because they're kill streaks. They're really, really good, I guess. But you'll notice that there is a group of assault rifles and a group of SMGs and a group of shotguns and LMGs that are more common. That is because these are the DLC weapons. And in a recent patch note, Treyarch said that DLC weapons are favored a little bit more than regular weapons, and that is very clearly shown right here. I love this graph, it's so beautiful, but there are some weapons that are just crazy, like the Maelstrom. I got that all the time. Same thing with the Siren, however you say it. Crazy, crazy common. I don't know if that's a bug, I don't know if it's meant to be that way, but that's how it is. And pistols. Pistols are crazy, crazy common too, and honestly, after the pistol buff, that's pretty good. LMGs are less common, snipers are less common. Obviously, the DLC sniper is a little bit more common, but very strange. And you'll notice, keen-eyed viewers will notice that FFAR is no longer, or is not in the box yet. The LC10 is not in the box yet. The Essex is not in the box yet. Pickaxe is obviously not here. Olympia is obviously not here. I never once got a mangler cannon from the box. I could have sworn I remembered seeing a mangler cannon, before doing this test, but correct me if I'm wrong, mangler cannon might not be in the box. And obviously Grim Reaper is not in the box, but the surprising gun that I never, ever got, the PPSH 41. Treyarch, where's the justice? Where's the justice for the PPSH? Okay, I get it. Wasn't the best SMG to start with, but it's actually underrated now. I'm updating my DPS chart, which you can find in the description. But yeah, over the course of all of these hours and days of testing, it never once got the PPSH from the box. But now let's look at this data with a little bit more simplicity, I guess. Talking about the weapon category, you can see our weapon categories here and the amount of weapons within that category. I made sure to count only the weapons that were in the mystery box. So I didn't count the PPSH or the LC10 or all of these things that aren't in the mystery box because that wouldn't be fair. But for example, with assault rifles, there are 11 assault rifles, which account for 16.6% of all of the different weapons. So again, if the mystery box is equally distributing all of these weapon categories, we should expect to see the percentage of weapons with all of these categories be exactly the same when you spin the mystery box, if everything is truly random. Now, of course, spoiler alert, we know it's not random, but we can see that here. These are the exact number of assault rifles, SMGs, all the stuff that we got from the box. And then we did the percent likelihood of getting them from the box. And you can see, for example, assault rifles, they were 16.6% of the weapons are assault rifles, but those assault rifles account for 20% of the weapons that you get out of the mystery box. So there's a little bit more attuning to the assault rifles, SMGs, shotguns you can get from the box. Now, I don't know if that's just weighing the assault rifles and SMGs and all these things more, or, for example, we notice that there is a decrease in probability you'll get a melee. So melees account for 15% of the total weapons, but they only account for 3% of the total weapons we got from the mystery box. So my guess is there's some sort of weighted difference for the melee to say, hey, don't spin melees, which that difference then pours into all of the other weapons like the pistols, assault rifles, SMG, shotguns. Does that make sense? And that's exactly what this graph is showing us. And it's a beautiful example here. Melees, like I said, 15% of the total weapons, but only 3% of the total box weapons. Same thing with kill streaks. Kill streaks, you can get a lot of them. There's a lot of different kill streaks, but they're only accounting for a small percentage, probably because they took this percentage and they tried to evenly distribute it against all the other categories. Pretty cool stuff. Now, when we go down here, this is looking at DLC weapons versus regular weapons. This one was very tricky to figure out how to represent because we have the actual count, but you can't take the actual count because, for example, like the TR2 is the only DLC marksman rifle. So there's 4 other marksman rifles. So you can't really do that. You had to like average them, and there's a lot of stuff I could get into. But long story short, we did the average base box count and the average DLC box count, and I graphed them here. And you'll notice that, yeah, by default, the base assault rifles get pulled around 16 times, but I pulled the DLC assault rifles around 29 times. SMGs, on average, I pulled 18 base SMGs and then about 40 DLC SMGs, which is very admirable because there was only like 2 SMGs that were DLC. Yeah, look at this, the SOG and the Ladra, 41 times, 38 times. All the other ones were very even, you know, about 15 to 20 times, around 20 times, but dang it, this one was just so much more frequent. Snipers have the biggest disparity here. Pistols, obviously launchers don't have any DLCs. Specials we didn't have at launch, so that's completely new. Wonder weapons is a little bit weird, we'll get into it. And kill streaks are about the same. I did count the death machine versus base kill streaks and all that stuff. But if I were to guess, based on my findings here, it looks as though you are about twice as likely to pull a DLC gun out of the box than a base gun out of the box. For example, marksman rifles 18 times 2 is 36, so there you go. LMGs are the only, it looks like that's the only difference. They seem to be doing the same, but shotguns, you know, 34 to 60, whatever, that's about twice. 18 to 39, that's about twice. 16 to 20, that's about twice. So that's what I would say. You have about twice the chance to get a DLC gun versus a regular gun within a certain weapon category. That's not to say that I got twice as many DLC guns versus regular guns, because you can see here, this is the DLC count box. This totals 483, whereas the total base, I got 648. So I did get more base guns, but while we were spinning, if we did get an assault rifle, we were twice as likely to get a DLC assault rifle than a regular assault rifle. I really hope that makes sense, man. It's been so long, so I hope this all makes sense. But now let's get into what you guys really came here for, and that is the weapon percentage, or the rarity percentage. And as I was getting these charts together, as I was spending hours and hours mindlessly spinning the box and just grabbing everything I could out of it, I had the thought, how even am I really spinning this box? Because my strategy was, especially, you know, around 21 to 30, you know, I'd spin the box as much as I could with the points I had, go to the next round, get some points, spin the box again. So how evenly did I distribute this? Could I break this down even further into every 5 rounds? And so I took all of this information and I made a brand new sheet, the same information broken down by every 5 rounds. This is crazy. Now you'll notice when looking at the total, this is nowhere near as evenly split as this is by the 10 rounds. You can see this is much closer to itself than this is. In fact, this round 41 through 45, I did 166 box spins before round 45. So I quit because that's all I was doing per round, or per chunk of round. And so I went back in at round 46, whatever, and I spun the box 35 more times just to get more data on this. But clearly you could see this is a great example. I got 116 legendaries here, 24 legendaries here, and 171 legendaries here. That does not mean you're getting less legendaries from 46 to 50. That just means Donuts didn't account for spinning the box as many times from round 46 to 50 as he did round 41 to 45 and round 50 plus. And luckily the percentages mostly take care of that, but just so when you're looking at this data, you're not confused, that's what happened. This is going to be a little bit less accurate, less clean than the round 10 data. Additionally, when looking at the Wonder Weapon data, this round 50 plus game, all 230 spins, all took place on Citadel Day More, which I didn't think much of until I thought the Wonder Weapons of Citadel Day More can't be gotten out of the box. On Terminus, you have the Ray Gun Mark II, and the Beam Smasher, but on Citadel, you only have the Ray Gun and the Ray Gun Mark II. Luckily, my round 41 to 45 run was on Terminus, and so that data set is going to be pretty accurate. But just so you know, Donuts is a donut and a terrible scientist, and accidentally spun the box 230 times after round 50 on Citadel Day More, where there was statistically less of a chance to get a Wonder Weapon from the box because there are less of them. But with that in mind, let's look at the probabilities here. So this first table is pretty simple. At round whatever, what is the probability that the gun you pull is going to be whatever rarity? So you can see round 0 through 5, you're most likely going to get an uncommon, then a rare, very, very unlikely you're going to get a legendary or epic. I got this percentage by taking this number and then dividing it by the entire number. So that is a certain percentage of all of this. You guys get the point. And so this is a good chart, but a better chart, something that you're probably more looking at, is this one. What is the best round for what rarity? In other words, what is the weight of the rarities as you progress through the round? So you can see the uncommon rarity is very common at round 0 through 5, and then it progressively gets lower as you progress through the rounds. The rare is pretty rare, at round 0 through 5, but at round 6, ooh, it gets a little bit more common, and then it peaks at round 11 through 15, and then it decreases at 16 through 20. So this is why I wanted to do this broken down by 5 rounds, because if you don't know, wall weapons have a chance to increase their rarity every 5 rounds, and a lot of things happen every 5th round in Black Ops 6 zombies and Cold War zombies, so that's why this round 5 breakdown is a little bit more interesting to me. And then at rounds 20 through 25, you can see, oh, now the epics is starting to get the most popular, and it's maintaining that, you know, commonality through rounds 26 through 30, and then it decreases, and then, oh, hey, now legendaries are a little bit more common, the most common there, and then it stays that way after round like 36 or 40. So to make that look even more beautiful, I graphed it all out. Look at how beautiful that is. Look at that. That looks so good. So there's our uncommon graph. You can see, you know, after round 21, it's pretty safe. You're probably not going to get any uncommon weapons. They might be more common, but once you hit round 30, that's as lowest as you're going to go with the uncommons. Moving on to the rares, you can see that peaks very much at rounds 11 through 15, but surprisingly, you have just as equal an opportunity to get a rare at rounds 16 through 20 as you do 6 through 10. Now that seems weird until we get to the epic, where instead of, you know, round 6 through 10, it's like 50-50, are you going to get a rare or an uncommon? At round 16 through 20, it's like, hey, are you going to get a rare or an epic? So really interesting how beautifully all of these probabilities align here. And then here we have epics being really common throughout round 20 to 30. And then at round 31, we're about halfway, which is where the legendaries take it. They're still very uncommon, even into the 30s and 40s. Well, not uncommon, but you're more likely to get an uncommon on round 0 through 5 than you are to get a legendary post round 35 all the way throughout the rest of your game. But believe me, I was getting legendaries left and right after round 35. It was crazy, crazy good. Now, in terms of wonder weapons, surprisingly, this was huge for me. They're pretty common. And again, remember that round 46 to 50 is Donuts being an idiot. And well, first of all, not spinning the box a ton of times round 46 to 50, but also spinning the box on Citadel Day more. So having a very low chance of getting a wonder weapon. So that I would say is an outlier. And this round 41 to 45 game, let's see if I can't even show you the game here. I think, yeah, here's the game. So you can see there's the Beam Smasher. Yeah, Beam Smasher, Ray Gun, Beam Smasher gun, Ray Gun Mark II, Ray Gun Mark II, really common. Ray Gun, Beam Smasher, Ray Gun Mark II. I just had a really good game. I think that was definitely Terminus, the Beam Smasher. I had a great game on Terminus, getting the Beam Smasher and Ray Gun Mark II after round 40. But if I were to guess, it seems as though the wonder weapons are pretty equally distributed especially after round 35, 36. And clearly the trend line is not as clear as we see on all of these other graphs. You would expect the Ultras, the wonder weapons, to follow almost exactly this legendary graph where they're more and more common, but it seems as though, you know, spinning the mystery box at round 11 through 20 or 25 or whatever these early rounds might not be a bad idea. It seems as though even though you're going to get more rare and uncommon and even epics, it seems as though they don't want to discourage you from spinning the box in the early rounds for that wonder weapon, because without these two outliers here, this round 41 through 50 and this 46, it would look pretty darn even. If we take a look at the more even round 10s that I did, and we scroll down, we did the same thing here. You see, oh, there's our uncommon, there's our rare, there's our epic. In fact, that's actually pretty good. 0 through 10, 11 through 20, 20 through 30, and then legendary is equally as common after round 30. There you go. That's really clean, really smooth. And again, we get a little bump here, rounds 41 through 50, but overall, once you hit round 10, it looks as though the wonder weapons might be just as common as they will ever get. So those public match people spinning the box at round 15 might be onto something. They might get that ice stuff before you. And here is what all the graphs look like together. It's not as easy to see. It's pretty ugly, but you can kind of see as you go through the rounds, you can see what the highest one is, obviously uncommon, and then rare, epic, legendary. You've got that spike with the wonder weapons there, but I don't know. This is just, it's beautiful. The box is beautiful, Treyarch. It's so good. And I just want to follow up on something. This is the graph of, you know, everything, and you can clearly see the different things are popular at different times or more common at different times. If we go over to our weapon categories, you'll clearly see, well, there is no clear winner. They are all pretty common all the time. So just again, to debunk, you're not getting different weapon categories more or less common throughout the rounds. It's just rarity. Kill streaks might be more more common as you go through because a lot of kill streaks are epic or legendary, etc., etc. Wonder weapons, same thing. They seem to be equally probable in these mid rounds as they are in the high rounds, with those two exceptions. Very, very strange. So let's recap. First and foremost, the mystery box is not entirely random. Certain categories of weapons are weighted more or less than others. Snipers, launchers, melees, specials, kill streaks, and wonder weapons seem to be weighted less than all of the other categories, and the pistols and overall shotgun category seem to be weighted a little bit more than the rest. Secondly, DLC weapons have a higher chance of appearing than regular base weapons, and it appears as though the DLC weapons are twice as likely to show up than their base weapon counterparts. And to clarify, that's not to say that you're going to get twice as many DLC weapons, just that the DLC weapons are twice as likely. Because there's fewer DLC weapons and more base weapons, you're still going to get more base weapons. Speaking of weapons, the current DLC 4 weapons, the FFAR, the LC-10, the S6 model, are not in the box, the Mangler cannon appears to not be in the box, and the PPSH appears to have never been added to the box either. In terms of outliers, the Maelstrom shotgun and the Siren special weapon are crazy more common. In terms of weapon rarity, uncommons are most likely round 0 through 5, and just overall from round 0 through 10, but then fall off dramatically after that, bottoming out their likelihood at round 30 and after round 30. The rare rarity peaks at likelihood from rounds 11 through 15, but are decently likely from rounds 6 through 25, also having the lowest likelihood after round 30. Epics peak at likelihood from rounds 20 to 30, and then are least likely before round 10 and after round 35. But also important to note, the epic rarity doesn't plummet as low as a percentage as the rare and uncommon do. Legendaries are most common after round 35, even though they have a respectable percentage at round 30, and they are obviously least likely from round 0 through 10. Wonder weapons are weird. Wonder weapons appear equally as likely after round 10 or 15. They are definitely incredibly rare before round 10, so don't hit the mystery box before round 10, but the ultra rarity, these wonder weapons, do not seem to follow the same sort of rarity rules as the other rarities. And if you ask me, that's pretty good. I like that wonder weapons are equally accessible in the mid to early to late rounds. Although my data suggests that after round 40 there is a huge spike in likelihood. There is, although unfortunately, some trouble with my testing because I tested out on Citadel Day More, which doesn't have box weapons outside of the ray gun and the ray gun Mark II. And after all of this, I do want to say that even though I spun the mystery box well over 1,100 times, that still isn't very much. In terms of all of the different weapons and all of the different categories, I could go even further. And honestly, if you download this sheet, we can extend this as far as we want to go, and I can continue working on this until we get to whatever amount of box spins that we want. All of the tables and graphs will automatically update based on the formulas. So if you want to do your own testing, if you want to wipe all of this data and start again, be my guest. The link will be in the description. And if you loved this analytical breakdown of the mystery box, perhaps you'd like to know why Shatterblast is actually underrated. Be sure to check out that video here, and as always, stay beautiful.